The settlements is a much more complex legal issue, and the reason is this: settlements is not really a legal term. There's no treaty in the world that talks about settlements being legal or illegal. Um, Settlements is a political term that we use to refer to a variety of different things. When Israel uses the term, what it means is municipalities within the West Bank that are primarily populated by Jews. When other actors use it, let's say when the Palestinians use the term, what they mean by settlements are any activity by Jews in an area in which the PLO believes they have no legitimate right to be. And what we're increasingly seeing in the world, for example, UN reports, is that the PLO conception is being used because it's not politically correct to say that it's about where Jews have no legitimate right to be. They'll use some more oblique formulation, but it's described as any activity. For example, business activities are settlements in the UN conception. Now, there is nothing in the rules of international law that say you may not do business that Israelis may not do business in the West Bank. You can look to the laws of occupation or any other set of rules you like. You'll never find such a rule. So that understanding of settlements, you clearly can't find anything wrong with settlements. I think what people say when they're trying to argue about the legality of settlements, when they claim that settlements are illegal, what they really mean to refer to is a set of rules that applies to the transfer of population in an occupied territory. And there is a rule that says an occupying power may not transfer parts of its population into occupied territory. So is Israel violating that rule? That's the real question we're asking about settlements. And we have to understand that even if we were to decide that Israel is violating that rule, that wouldn't make the settlements themselves illegal. It wouldn't mean that the settlers are violating any law. And it wouldn't mean that most of the things that happen in settlements, people building porches, people paving roads, people even building new houses, it wouldn't make those things illegal. The only thing that would be illegal if they're unlawful transfers, the only thing would be illegal would be Israel making somebody or inducing somebody or transferring somebody from Israel to the occupied territory. That's what would be unlawful. Now, has Israel ever done such transfers? Well, as far as I know, there's no cases in which Israel has taken people and forcibly moved them or transported them or attempted to induce them specifically to cross the line. There are some cases that we can argue about, I think 30 and 40 years ago, whether Israel actively encouraged people to move. It's certainly not the case in any way that I can see in recent decades. But we also have to bear in mind something else, which is transfer. If we're trying to interpret what the word transfer means, Israel is not the only country in the world, and the West Bank is not the only place in the world where people view the rules of occupation as applying. So Morocco actually transported people into the Western Sahara. Turkey actually transported people into northern Cyprus. Armenia actually transferred people into Nagorno-Karabakh. Russia actually transferred people into Abkhazia and South Ossetia. People have actually been transferred into occupied territories many times in the past. And it has never been seen in any other context as posing some legal problem that has to be resolved. And I think there's a reason. And the reason is the Fourth Geneva Convention's use of transfer as a crime. The term transfer, I don't think means providing people with buses or tax benefits. It's referring to a very specific case. It's referring to the case of Germany and what it did in the territories of Europe that it conquered, where it conducted what we have to see on modern terms as a genocide, where it murdered people that it didn't want there. It put others into brainwashing or re-education. And where there was not enough people left after they were engaged in these practices, they sent people they considered to be true Germans into the territory. And so the way I read the transfer language of the Fourth Geneva Convention is a component piece of the larger crime of genocide. Now, none of the transfers that I've talked about, or none of the practices that I've talked about, the Moroccans in Western Sahara, or the Turks in Northern Cyprus, and obviously not Israel and the West Bank, are part of this horrible crime that the Germans did, which is why in none of the other cases have states treated these as illegal transfers, and why it's absurd to treat the Israeli case as an illegal transfer.